So I'll be talking about ketogenic diet, but rather I thought that I should start with fasting first. So when I was making this presentation, I came across several new things that I learned myself also. So one of these things was fasting. What is fasting? So there are two Sanskrit words that define fasting. One is vrat and other is upvas. और मैंने पहली बार ही सीखा कि ये क्या चीजें होती हैं. We always heard व्रत और उपवास, पर कभी देखा नहीं था कि ये क्या है, definitions क्या हैं. So व्रत is you take a vow and then stick to the task. हिंदी में कहेंगे इसको कि हमने एक प्रतिज्ञा ली कि हम ये करेंगे, तो वो व्रत है, या कुछ नहीं करेंगे. For diet, if we ask, व्रत means to eat at maximum of one meal per 24 hours, or maybe less than that. So there can be no meal with water or no meal without water. And no meal for 24 hours without water is called Nirjal Vrat. And these pratigyas or vows can be for many other things also, not only for food. For example, if somebody makes a vow for not speaking for a day, then it is called a Maun Vrat. Upvas, we thought that upvas and vrat are same things, but when I came across this, I realized that these are two different things. So upvas is, up means near or to, and vas means reside, to reside. The popular interpretation is to reside near to the God, or one's focus or awareness is on the God. The other meaning of upvasa is to withdraw from your senses and focus. Upvas in terms of food is to eat only light food without meat, roots, and oil for a day or maybe more. Now, the difference between vrat and upvas, if we consider both for meals, is that vrat is more strict. You don't have to eat anything, or you should eat less than one meal per day. But for upvas, you can eat daily, you can eat light food, you can eat more than once also. But the purpose of vrat and upvas are also different. Because upvasa is related to more spiritual things, it has to be carried forward for several days. So one has to eat, one cannot keep fasting for several days. So light food is allowed in upvas. So in modern eras, there is a lot of debate going on whether we should be fasting, whether fast should be kept, or should not be fasting. So for the proponents for fasting, they say that it is like providing rest to the digestive machinery. They say it is almost like taking your car for a servicing, where it stays there resting and the oils and filters are changed. They say it is similar as a body which is at rest. It recuperates, it recovers. It helps remove toxins, improves health, helps in weight loss. And there are spiritual meanings to fasting also. They say that it improves focus and it improves spiritual well-being. But the proponents for no fasting say that fasting is like starvation and it produces deficiencies of vitamins and minerals. So to know whether fasting is good or not, we have to go, what is the history of fasting? The world history of fasting is very vast. In Indian context, we know that fasting is inherent to Indian culture. And in mythologies, we do come across fasting very often. In ancient Greek cultures, the largest proponent was Plato and his disciple Aristotle. He said that I fast for greater physical and mental efficiency. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, said that the natural healing force within each one of us is the greatest force in getting well. To eat when you are sick is to feed your sickness. Ancient Egyptians used to fast for 30 days a year. They experienced that it increases their morale and focus. Even the Native Americans, they used to feed only when they had an urge. And they used to fast as a prayer to achieve success in the upcoming wars. All major religions of the world, they have a tradition of fasting. They have fasting for different reasons, but most religions feel that fasting is important to cleanse body, to control temptation, and for spiritual upliftment. It is only in the modern era, and this too is seen more in the Western cultures, that the fasting is demonized. And they believe that the fasting is demonized because of the corporate food chains and medicine houses. But in Indian culture, we don't come across this kind of demonizing behavior of corporate because it is deeply ingrained into our culture. So why I'm talking about fasting, I should be talking about ketogenic diet because there is an inherent relation between fasting and diet, especially ketogenic diet. So it was Gulepa and Mary, for the first time, they showed that fasting actually has medical benefits. So they treated 21 patients with intermittent fasting. All these 21 patients were patients with refractory epilepsy. And in this series of 21 patients, actually 15 patients could not do fasting. They cheated. So they had data of only 6 patients to present. 2 of them actually attained fasting only for some time. So they did fasting temporarily, but they were benefited during that time of fasting. 4 of them, they persisted with fasting and all 4 improved. So after this publication, there were many people who tried fasting for epilepsy. And you see the number of patients that they were all retrospective data, ranged from 23 to 64 patients. Both children and adults were there. Majority had grand mal seizures or petit mal seizures. All fasted. Duration of fasting was 4 days to 21 days. And you see the proportion of patients that improved was 47% to 87%. So it was a very significant thing. And this is a very interesting story that one of the child who improved from the fasting, his father, who was also a doctor, actually asked some of the physicians at that time to look into the reasons why the fasting improves seizures. So it was Lennox and Cobb in 1922. They did a study on 5 patients who were fasting for 2 weeks. Lennox himself actually served as control for 14 days. They did chemical analysis of blood and urine, and they showed that during fasting there is increase in serum uric acid, there is acidosis. And when they subjected these patients to carbohydrate, protein, and fat diet, they realized that the acidosis and uric acid persisted when the patients were given cream, 40% cream, but it broke when they were given carbohydrate and protein-rich diet. So it was probably the first few evidences where they came across diets that had similar effects as fasting. So it was later many researchers actually looked into it, and they found that there are certain biochemical changes that occur in the body secondary to fasting. And the most striking was there was increase in plasma free fatty acids, blood ketone levels, and plasma glucagon. Whereas plasma insulin, blood glucose, and liver glycogen actually reduces over a period of time while fasting. So at the same time, when Lennox observed this observation, another physician, Dr. Wilder, at Mayo Clinic proposed that benefits of fasting could be obtained by ketonemia if ketonemia is achieved by other means. The ketone bodies are formed from fat and protein whenever a disproportion exists between the amount of fatty acid and amount of sugar actually burning in the tissues. So in any case, as long as been known, it is possible to provoke ketogenesis by feeding diets which are rich in fat and low in carbohydrate. It is proposed, therefore, to try the effect of such ketogenic diet on a series of epileptics. So this observation was shared in one of the conference in 1921. And on the following day, he shared his 3 patients of epilepsy whom he treated with fat diets, and all 3 improved. They showed more than 50% reduction in seizures. So it was for the first time that the term ketogenic diet was devised and ketogenic diet was used. It was used and devised, the term was devised by Dr. Wilder only. So if we look into the chronology of anti-epileptic drugs, the first drug that came into the existence was bromides in 1840s. The second drug was phenobarbital. It came into existence in late 1900s. Before, around 20 years before the development of phenytoin, the ketogenic diet was there to treat patients with epilepsy. So it is not something which is new. Ketogenic diet is one of the oldest therapy for epilepsy. So now we come on to the topic, what is ketogenic diet? So diets rich in fats are ketogenic diets. And depending upon the ratio of fat to carbohydrate and proteins, there are 4 types of ketogenic diets. One is classic ketogenic diet, then medium chain triglyceride ketogenic diet, modified Atkins diet, and low glycemic index diet. So what are the difference between these 4 diets? So they have a different ratio of fats to carbohydrates to proteins. So classic ketogenic diet that we use is 4:1 ratio, but it can be downgraded to 3:2, 2:2, or 1:1 ratio. The MCT diet here, we do not use the strict ratios. The reason is that the MCT, or the medium chain triglycerides, they're actually more ketogenic than the long chain triglycerides that we use primarily in classic ketogenic diet. The low glycemic index treatment and modified Atkins diet actually uses 1:1 ratio. The carbohydrate allowance is very restricted in all these diet forms, but it is more restricted in classic ketogenic diet. If you devise a diet for 1000 kilocalories, for 4:1 ratio, only 8 gram carbohydrates allowed, 16 gram for 3:1, 30 gram for 2:1, and 40 to 60 gram for 1:1. For MCT diet, again, 48 gram of glucose is allowed for 1000 kilocalorie diet. For LGIT, 40 to 60 gram, and for modified Atkins diet, 10 gram for first month, followed by 20 to 30 grams per day. These diets are strictly calorie controlled, except for modified Atkins diet, where we do not strictly restrict calories. Fluid restriction is not required. Fluid is fully allowed. And we expect high urine ketones in classic ketogenic diet, especially 4:1 ratio. So what are the pros and cons of these diet forms? The pros for classic ketogenic diet is that since the diet is fixed in ratio, so there is little variation in ketosis. Therefore, if there is a slight variation of ketones is seen, we can easily adjust the diet. And since ketones are usually uniformly there, so less record keeping is required. The downsides are that child must eat everything on the plate. Protein allowance is limited. And since there are strict ratios of protein is to carbohydrate and fat, so involves a lot of measuring food. In MCT diet, the proteins are more, so that is the pros. So when protein and carbohydrates are allowed, it gives more variety to the diet, and more protein actually allows more volume to mix fats. The side effects are that the medium chain triglycerides are poorly tolerated. So there are a lot of GI side effects. It is time consuming. It involves a lot of measuring and weighing. The pros for MCT diet actually are same for LGIT and MAD also. The downsides are for LGIT, we need to have a knowledge of low glycemic index foods. And since there is variable ketone production, it involves a lot of record keeping. For modified Atkins diet also, high variability of ketosis is there, so record keeping has to be robust. So there are certain precautions before or while using ketogenic diets. Diet should be given under strict medical supervision. Classic ketogenic diet and medium chain triglyceride ketogenic diet should be started in hospital only. The low glycemic index diet and modified Atkins diet can be started at home because the ratio are not strict. Vitamins and minerals are actually lag in both all the form of diet, so they have to be supplemented. Before the starting and during the follow-up, anthropometric measurements, blood sugar, urine and blood ketones, lipids, renal stones, serum carnitine levels, etc. have to be assessed. And side effects of ketogenic diets have to be measured or carefully monitored. So what are the lab investigations and at what time they should be done? Before starting or at the time of screening, the blood and urine tests are done to exclude certain disorders, which we'll just see. And during the follow-up or while the child is on ketogenic diet, every 3 months we get blood and urine tests. In blood, we get complete blood counts, electrolytes, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, lipase, selenium, L-phos, vitamin D, lipid profiles, carnitine, and beta-hydroxybutyrate levels. Beta-hydroxybutyrate is one of the ketones which is not excreted in urine. That is why it has to be seen in blood. In urine, every 3 months, we should do urine analysis and calcium creatine ratio. and echocardiogram annually. There are certain side effects of ketogenic diet also. Acute side effects are nausea, vomiting, hypoglycemia, and lethargy due to excessive ketosis and acidosis. Chronic side effects include gastrointestinal, which are chief chronic side effects of ketogenic diets, and includes constipation, weight loss, mineral and vitamin deficiencies, for example, selenium deficiency, and vitamin D and calcium deficiencies. And pancreatitis is also one of the rare gastrointestinal side effect of ketogenic diets. Then they make people prone for renal stones. They can produce prolonged QT interval, de novo or secondary to cardiomyopathy, secondary to selenium deficiency. They can produce short stature or osteopenia, and they can produce low albumin, low carnitine, and abnormal lipid profiles, that is elevated cholesterol levels. So how to initiate ketogenic diet? Before even thinking of ketogenic diet, the patient selection is very, very important. What we do here is that we first assess the patient, and the patient should be strictly refractory to medical management. Second, we should see what are the associated conditions involved. Certain biochemical defects, there are contraindications to ketogenic diet. We had one child who had Kluver-Bucy syndrome. In Kluver-Bucy syndrome, there is one of the components hyperphagia. So we selected that child for ketogenic diet, but later we realized that the child was eating too much. So he was taking 2 or 3 full packs of KetoKit powder per day. So we had a very difficult times in managing that child. So patient selection is very, very important. Then there is pre-diet counseling. Here we talk to the family and parents of the child. We explain them the diet. As per the choice of the patient and family, we create a recipe list. We give a demonstration of how to use ketodiastics for urine assessment of ketones, how to measure blood sugar. We take baseline measurements. We do all lab tests. We even decide what kind of toothpaste child should use, which does not contain any sugars. Then if we have to produce ketosis in urgency or emergency, we generally admit the child and we start 4:1. And before starting 4:1, we start fasting, because fasting actually helps early ketosis. But we can start ketogenic diet without fasting also. Then we have to institute certain diet therapies which allows carbohydrate washout. Fasting or no fasting actually has no effect on long-term seizure control by ketogenic diet. Then we start ketogenic diet. We convert all syrups that the child was taking to tablets. Sugars are avoided. If required, artificial sweeteners may be used. And diet is planned in such a way that the child does not feel hungry. So 4 to 5 diets or 6 diets per day will be devised. And in follow-up, we maintain a seizure diary. We do a very meticulous seizure count. We ask the families and teach them how to do a seizure count. We monitor the behavior of the child, do anthropometric and lab measurements, and we carefully monitor for side effects of the ketogenic diet. So how long a ketogenic diet should be used? So it is said that the ketogenic diet should be used at least for 2 to 3 months to assess the response of diet, especially if the child is able to tolerate the diet. Some of the epilepsy syndromes where we feel that the child should be on diet for some more time, especially if the child is well controlled or showing response. Here we can actually continue the diet, and the maximum duration to which the diet can be continued is 12 years. This is the data which is available in the literature. We have used ketogenic diet for a few years in our children. If we have to use a diet for long term, then we gradually convert the classic diet into the modified Atkins diet, because it is better tolerable, number one. It gives more food variety, and so the compliance is better. If a child is having a lot of side effects, or if there are any urgent side effects which require diets to be stopped urgently, we usually admit the child in ICUs, because stopping the diet abruptly may accentuate seizures or may produce even status epilepticus. And if the urgency is not required, then we gradually wean off the diet. So how to wean off? We gradually downgrade the diet, classic diet, from 4:1 to 1:1, or change diet gradually into modified Atkins diet. So there have been a lot of evidence that the ketogenic diet is effective. These are some of the studies only. There are many more studies than this. And this study actually mentioned the type of epilepsy syndrome where this diet were used. You see that the more than 50% children showed more than 50% reduction in seizures, and more than 50% reduction in seizures is actually considered a response in all anti-epileptic drug trials. So if we consider that, we will see that the ketogenic diet is actually effective in epilepsies. There are certain contraindications of ketogenic diet, and these contraindications are all in metabolic disorders that involves lipid metabolism, like pyruvate carboxylase deficiency, primary carnitine deficiency, defects in fatty acid oxidation, and porphyria. Relative contraindications are renal stones and hyperlipidemia. So what is the mechanism of action of ketogenic diet? So initially people thought that it is the ketones. They pass through the blood-brain barrier and they go into the brain, and there they stabilizes neuronal membrane, and this is how they reduces the epilepsy. But later it was seen that when we convert diet from classic diet to modified Atkins diet, actually the ketosis also reduces. And despite the fact that there are not many ketones in the blood, the children are still seizure free. So later people actually thought that there could be many other mechanisms. It is simply like कि जिस बीमारी का कोई इलाज नहीं है उसमें बहुत सारे इलाज हैं, ऐसे जिसका कोई मैकेनिज्म नहीं है उसमें बहुत सारे मैकेनिज्म्स हैं. Like people say that there is increase in polyunsaturated fatty acids secondary to high fat diet. So they also have a neuronal effect on neuronal excitability, anti-inflammatory activity against glutamine related excitotoxicity, antioxidant mechanism, increase in mitochondrial functions, increase in ATP, alteration in neurometabolites, and some of these neurometabolites which increase in brain actually has some influence on seizures. So all these are postulated mechanisms, and we still do not know till date what actually is the mechanism of action of ketogenic diet. So can ketogenic diet be used for other reasons? So I'll show you one very interesting video. So he is Yogacharya Yoganand. He is 104 years old. He is world famous, teaches yoga all over the world. And he is one of the greatest proponents of fasting. And he is not the only one. There are a large number of saints who are proponents of fasting, and they say that every and any illness, if they encounter, they do only one thing, they fast. And they feel that they are rejuvenated after that and the illness is improved. I'm not sure whether it is good for all kind of illnesses, but epilepsy we surely know. And for other disorders, they have been expanding the spectrum of work of ketogenic diet. We used in refractory epilepsy. We also used in super refractory status epilepticus. There are a lot of studies now showing the response of diet for autism, headache, Alzheimer's disease, head trauma, and many more. So, to summarize, fasting is known for years to exert several health benefits. And today we know that the ketogenic diet is actually has same benefits as fasting. It can be used for a long period of time, unlike fasting. So the downside of fasting is that you cannot make a patient fast indefinitely. He has to be some form of therapy. And the therapy that exerts actually the same benefits as fasting is only ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet is of several types depending upon the ratio of fat to carbohydrate and protein. But it should be used under medical care only because it also involves lots of side effects. And the spectrum of beneficial effects of diet is actually increasing. So we invited Shilpi also today. She is a dietitian here and we have been working together. So if you have any questions specific to the diet, so Shilpi they will be there to answer. Otherwise, I can also answer your questions. Thank you.